They'll have to set a land speed record here, at least certainly for Congress to make this happen. More importantly, Speaker Johnson has to forget about the 72-hour rule. How many people on the right will he offend with that?
Well, they're already putting out their statements and saying things on Capitol Hill. They're not happy with either things in this bill, the process of this bill. But as you know, sort of the drive to get out of town, we're on the cusp of a recess. You know, there's a lot of interest in teeing this up for tomorrow and getting out of town.
Well, you talk about how we've heard from a lot of people who are not satisfied with this legislation, perhaps not satisfied with the amount of time they have to read it. It seems both sides are trying to play up wins here, but fundamentally, this looks a lot like the Fiscal Responsibility Act that passed, 10 months ago, right?
It does, and you have people attacking it from both sides, hyping up wins for sure. But at the same time, you have Democrats that are, finding things that they don't like, the levels of funding in something. Of course, there's a provision in there that would, I guess, ban flying of LGBTQ pride flags at embassies, U.S. embassies. So that's something that Democrats and, sort of the Democratic base voters don't want to see. There's a lot to like and a lot to not like for both sides in this.
Okay. And considering both sides of Congress, once this gets through the House, how much of a challenge might this be in the Senate? We actually spoke yesterday with Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat from Illinois, about that very matter. Here's what she said on Bloomberg.
If that comes to the floor for a vote and we can pass it in whole without adding any amendments to it, it will pass and we won't have government shutdown. But if the House attaches any amendments or we attach any amendments, the whole thing could fall apart and we would go well into the weekend. The goal is to get this done without shutdown, which means we would need to pass it by midnight on Friday.
The whole thing could still fall apart, says the senator. She mentions amendments. We don't have a timing deal on this yet, right? What's Chuck Schumer in for this weekend?
They're working on
it.
I mean, they're working on it. They'd like to have a vote as soon as tomorrow.
Okay.
And again, there you go. There's this, sort of the pressure building, 2-week recess on the horizon. Everybody wants to get back to their districts and, talk about what they just did or what they don't like about what just happened. But I think, yes, everything could fall apart. That's always possible. How many times have we been talking about shutdowns? I was just working on a story today, and the headline has shutdown fatigue in it because, even people who work this process and are, they're getting a little fatigued by this, constant cycle. Yes, it could fall apart, of course, but we have seen them again and again try to wrap things up so that they don't, in an election year, sort of draw attention to the dysfunction of government.
Yeah, I think it was September 30th and then mid-November and then 2 dates in January, 2 dates earlier this March, and now we're up here at the end of March doing this whole song and dance.
Off the top of your head,
again.
That was good.
Well, we all lived and breathed it
Yes,
for the last 6 months. It
Some
certainly
of us are
has
trying
been.
to forget about it.
Fair enough. Of course, that all is behind us now. When we look at what may be to come once all of this is finally done and dusted, there is the question of supplemental aid. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has always said we need to sort out appropriations first before we actually get to addressing things like Ukraine and Israel. Dan, is there looking like there is a clear path forward on that front?
I don't know that there's a clear path yet, but, the brush is sort of being cleared away bit by bit. Last week at the Republican retreat, some House Republicans, including Speaker Johnson, were making some positive noises about maybe doing something on the Ukraine supplemental and some of the other national security priorities of the administration, including Taiwan and Israel. But there is no solid proposal for how to do that at this point. So, we're getting some vibes, but nothing solid yet. So we'll have to see what happens once they get the basic business of running the government out of the way.
Well, that's a lot said right there. Of course, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, spoke with negotiators in Egypt earlier. And I want to get your input on this, Dan, as we approach the makings potentially of what could be a ceasefire. Here's what he said.
There's a clear consensus around a number of shared priorities. First, the need for an immediate, sustained ceasefire with the release of hostages. That would create space to surge more humanitarian assistance to relieve the suffering of many people and to build something more enduring.
I'm getting a little bit confused here with the narrative as Israel says it will invade Rafah no matter what the U.S. says. How do we potentially see both happen?
Well, certainly tensions are rising between the U.S. and Israel on this particular issue. There's a lot of pressure on Israel to hold back or somehow attenuate its operation in Rafah in order to get some humanitarian aid into that city. The problem is there's really nowhere for those people to go at the moment. And so Israel has made it clear that it intends to carry out that operation, whatever the cost might be, and has argued that there is some humanitarian aid flowing to that region and there may be some places for those people to go. Mm-hmm. The U.S. has a different view of that issue. I think all sides would love to see a ceasefire. The problem is, at this point, Israel is not prepared to commit to that until they're able to at least complete this operation and feel that they have really kind of eradicated the threat from Hamas. So you're seeing on Capitol Hill tensions rising, not just between the U.S. and Israel, but between Republicans and Democrats on this issue. Biden is in a tricky spot with the election coming up. So all of these things look to be coming to a head as Congress is basically trying to get out of town for a 2-week recess. So.
Yeah, of course, Netanyahu remotely joined a meeting of Senate Republicans yesterday. Now, Speaker Johnson said today that he would like Netanyahu to address the House as well. It seems like we're going to hear a lot from the Israeli prime minister. And of course, while we are focused on the conflict between Israel and Hamas, there is still ongoing what else is happening in the Middle East, including in the Red Sea, that attacks from Houthi rebels that the U.S. has come out and said has numbered 50 or perhaps north of that. Are things improving on that front as we're seeing tensions rise specifically over Israel and Gaza? What's happening everywhere else?
It seems like things are getting worse all over. Sometimes that's the case before things start to improve. It's hard to see where things will go on that particular issue at the moment. The Houthis have shown no desire to negotiate or to cease those attacks. And as long as the conflict continues, the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza, I assume that those attacks will continue apace until there is either some really significant military action, which doesn't seem to be in the offing at the moment on the part of the U.S. against the Houthi rebels, or there is a ceasefire and tensions sort of de-escalate across the region. Neither one of those seems like a likely outcome, at least in the near future at the moment.